We have with us another leading aeronautical scientist, someone who's also an aquanaut, a physician. She's a pilot in training, the incredible Dr. Shawna Pandya. Thank you, Dr. Pandya, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
We have a room full of young women ready and eager to be inspired by you. And it would be wonderful, we thought, if you can start by explaining a little bit about your journey to, how your childhood dream of entering space, of becoming a space explorer worked out, and what does space medicine really mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when I was a young girl growing up in Canada, I watched the first Canadian woman, Dr. Roberta Bondar, go to space. And I looked at her and I thought, if she can go to space, I can go to space. And so, if she's a woman and I'm a woman, then to be like her, all I need to do is go be a neuroscientist, a physician, and then an astronaut. And that's what started me on my journey. So I set out studying neuroscience in my undergraduate degree, and then I pursued medicine. Made a stop along the way at the International Space University to do a master's in space science in Strasbourg, France. From there, I was lucky enough to intern at the European Astronaut Center in Cologne, Germany, in their crew medical support office. And that was the first time I really realized that you can
Mm-hmm.
make space medicine part of your career. And for me, that was the first of many opportunities. I went to my first space conference as a medical student. Someone saw my paper there and asked me to write a book chapter out of it. And that made me an even more competitive candidate in space medicine. And before long, by my final year of medical school, I was accepted to be an intern in the NASA Johnson Space Center Aerospace Medical elective. And so all of these opportunities just spiraled and also really sparked that love for exploration. Um, it's part of it is about the want and the desire to go to space, but it's also loving every aspect and every part of the journey along the way, whether it's doing analog missions in space-like environments, doing underwater missions as an aquanaut. So every part of the journey has just been stellar, and I feel like I'm getting started.
That's incredible. And for any girl who dreams of exploring space and going there, you've really lived that dream, right? And you've combined so many different aspects of science, which is fascinating because you had a passion for medicine and then you combined space exploration with medicine. So can you tell us a little bit more about what that field really looks like for anyone who could potentially explore that?
Yeah, absolutely. Often I get asked, what is space medicine? Why is that even a field? And it seems like two seemingly disparate terms until you realize that space is trying to kill you. And by that I mean the space flight environment is full of many hazards. And so briefly, we categorize them into the big five hazards of space. So there's the obvious one that we all think about when we think about the space flight environment, which is of course microgravity or zero G. And so
Mhm.
the bottom line is that every single bodily system is affected by the zero G environment. Our bones lose density, our muscles lose mass, our fluids shift upwards. That can cause increased pressure on certain parts of our brains and our eyes. There's increased radiation, which can cause damage over time to different organs in the astronaut. There's needing to deal with the loneliness or the isolation of confinement to space, the increasing distances from Earth. So the further out from Earth we go, the more autonomous or capable astronauts need to be without relying on Earth supply. And then
Mhm.
there's everything else. So the Apollo astronauts who walked on the moon had to deal with a lot of lunar dust that was really
Mhm.
fine and clogged up their suit joints. And so now when we think about all of these challenges when it comes to sending humans to space, it makes sense that there's a field of space medicine that starts with very rigorous screening for sending astronauts to space,
Mhm.
sending the healthiest of the healthy, and then working to keep astronauts healthy while in space and then rehabbing them once they come back from space.
That's incredible. And it's probably such an important field that we don't talk about nearly enough. Before you came on, we were having conversations about spaces that are often not space, but areas that are often dominated by men that
Mm-hmm.
make it harder for women to enter, right? Space, NASA, largely the aeronautical area is one of those spaces, like STEM at large is. How was it for you navigating that? Was it ever challenging to be a woman?
I honestly never even thought about that. There were often times where I was the youngest or the first or the only woman or the only woman of color, and I never even thought about any of that growing up because I just wanted to be part of my career so badly.
Hmm.
And I was lucky because I didn't let or I didn't think of those barriers growing up. But that's not the case with everyone, and it's not something that anyone should have to contend with. If you want to be in a specific career path, whether that's space medicine, aerospace engineering, whatever, um, act like you belong there because you absolutely do. And then lift others up along the way with you as you go, because space needs all of us. Space is really hard, and
Hmm.
it's a very multidisciplinary effort.
Yeah. And to everyone here, please raise your hands or write your questions in the chat that you have for Dr. Pandya as we're talking. Uh, it's incredible that you didn't have to tell yourself, or you didn't hold yourself back saying, I'm a woman and I can't do this. But did you ever face situations where others were reminding you of that, or it became a little bit more difficult for you?
I think that's constant. Whether it's in medicine, whether it was in surgery, whether it's in space medicine now, I think there's always going to be people who say, you aren't enough this, you
Hmm.
aren't enough that, and I think what matters at the end of the day is you're listening to your own inner critiques. Are you
Hmm.
on the path that you set out for yourself? And
Hmm.
of those, are you listening to the critiques of trusted friends and family and colleagues, and
Hmm.
even those you have to take with a grain of salt. Your family's going to have certain priorities for you. Maybe mom and dad want you to get married and have a family, right? And
Hmm.
that might be the path. That may not be the main path for you, or it may not be the path for you at that time. So as
Hmm.
long as we're always thinking critically about those things and asking ourselves, what is right for me? What do I want to do? What kind of good do I want to do for the world? I think
Hmm.
that's the way I've navigated my life, and I think I that's a good philosophy to go by.
That's amazing. Before you came on, you might have heard this, but Amina was saying she's interested in a STEM career and also interested in space. Amina,
I heard that.
yeah, do you want to say something, or do you want to ask Dr. Pandya a question while we have her?
I don't really know what to ask. You're very inspiring to me.
Oh, thank you so
Um,
much.
I was just thinking that I don't really have like a question to ask, but you I don't know what to say.
That's
So
okay.
sorry.
Why don't you tell us a
It's
little bit
okay.
more about what interests you in space? And I'm sure Dr. Pandya will have something about her from her experience or her advice to share with you.
Well, in space, I'm not that interested in like actually going to space, but like studying it, like the different stars and like planets and like astronomy and almost like that is kind of what I'm interested in.
That's important. One of the best courses I took in my neuroscience degree, believe it or not, was an astrophysics course. And
Mm-hmm.
we need all manner of people in space. We need scientists, we need astrophysicists, we need astrobiologists, we need space doctors, we need storytellers, we need lawyers, we need journalists. So, whatever your interest is, if even if I didn't name it, I promise you there's a role for you in space if you're passionate about it.
Thank you.
All right.
That's really all I had to ask. Thank you so much.
I see Raina has her hand up.
Hi, nice to meet you. So I know that you went to med school, and I've heard that it's a very grueling time, like just studying and studying and studying.
Yes.
Is there any advice you'd like to give any of us who want to, still be in med school but not get discouraged by all the time spent studying and yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So whatever it is you do it because you love it, not because someone else thought it would be a good fit for you, or because, that was what your brothers and sisters and cousins did. And that's not to say that things aren't going to be hard. Anything worth doing is going to be hard. That's true of space, that's true of medicine, that's true of aerospace engineering. And so then when things get hard, there's a few ways to deal with it. remind yourself of your passion and why you got into it. For me, I have more than enough projects keeping me busy, but I still choose to practice emergency medicine because I find it an incredible honor and privilege to be able to help people in matters of life and death and when they're at their most vulnerable. And then also realize you're not alone on this journey. Whatever you're doing that's hard, especially in medicine, make sure that you're talking to other fellow medical students, pre-medical students, if it's before you got into medicine, and even once you're in medicine, with fellow physicians, because medicine itself is a tough field, and it really helps to know that you're not alone on this journey.
Dr. Pandya, you mentioned you still practice emergency medicine. And before we go to Akshita's question, I want to ask you, how do you balance all of your responsibilities? Because you do so much.
Yeah, it's a combination of very careful time management and having a lot of good people in my life. And so I have incredible family support. I have incredible friends. I have incredible teammates. So, on any given day, I might be working in emergency medicine. I might be working in the clinic. I might be working to develop virtual reality technologies to help develop medical educational modules in VR for astronauts or for healthcare professionals on Earth. I might be advising companies. I might be testing spacesuits in zero gravity. Every day is a little bit different. And, it's a lot of fun. So part of it's just being incredibly driven by what I do. But the other part of it is believing in the mission of what I do and working with incredible people.
That's incredible, because what you've so successfully done is combined two different, like we were saying earlier, you often unrelated fields of science and brought them together so beautifully. Let's head to Akshita. Akshita, you have a question?
Well, first of all, I would just like you to know, like, listening to you is maybe starting to get me interested in science because I'm personally not a science lover. And thank you for that. But one question is, like you said, you saw a female astronaut on TV. Sorry, I forgot the name. But that's how you got interested and you got motivated yourself to become an astronaut. But do you think you would still do what you are if you did not see her?
That's a really interesting question. And first of all, I'm delighted that you're getting interested in science. And, to keep that interest in science, just ask questions, be curious, ask why things are the way they are. It's hard to say. That was part of my passion in science, but the other part of it was just loving being outside and looking at the night sky. I did a lot of camping as a kid. I did that through Girl Guides. I did that through outdoor education classes in school. I did that through camping with my family. And when you just go outside and stare at the night sky or watch a meteor shower, you can't help but be inspired by just the vastness of the universe.
Yeah, that's very understandable. Because personally, I do love the night sky, but being at home and me not being that great of a student in school, I cannot go out to see it that much. Plus all the pollution that's happening in Bangalore and India all over, you cannot see the stars properly. But that's something I realized a couple of years back, that if I had gotten these, like, done these little things that would have made me so interested in science, I would have chosen the STEM subjects. Because in like my first 5 years, like from first to fifth, I was in love with science. Then out of nowhere, since all that pressure began, I just hated science. So I just think if, like, I did those, like, tiny little things to keep me still interested in science, I would have been, like, aspiring to be, I don't know, a doctor or a nurse or like a family doctor.
How old are you now, Akshita?
I'm 15.
15. You must be in 10th grade, 10th standard.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're still young. The world is your oyster. Whatever you want to study, it's not too late. If you want to just start by, Googling your favorite question about science, teaching yourself a skill, teaching yourself to code, like whatever, do it for fun. Don't do it because it's telling you to do it. Do it because you enjoy it. Because there's so much out there that you can still fall in love with in science.
Actually, what you just now said, because of me doing something I used to love, I got this sudden interest in cooking, and then my whole motivation aspiration to become a culinary artist. So I'll take your points, and I'll probably do it for science as well to see where I could go ahead.
Well, you're already doing it because cooking is actually just chemistry done right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because Dr. Pandya, like we've been saying again and again, Akshita, like Dr. Pandya has shown, you can take two fields that interest you and combine them in a way that works for you, right? Like you can take cooking and chemistry, like Dr. Pandya is saying, or whatever aspect of science, and make your own combination of how you want to conquer the world with it.
I'll probably do that.
Dr. Pandya, when you were young, so you mentioned you saw Roberta, I believe, going into space, and that got you really interested.
Yes,
Was
yeah,
it you
exactly.
was it very early on that you got exposed to STEM careers and STEM fields, or did you how was it that you entered thinking I can also enter STEM? Because like Akshita is saying, often young girls don't get that opportunity.
Yeah, there when I was young, definitely boys were more pushed towards math and science. But I still found my way towards space. Every time I went to the library, I would get out books on astronomy and astrophysics and space exploration. And anytime there was a new article on, what the latest Mars rovers were doing, what Viking was doing,
Mm-hmm.
I would, want to read up on it. So I think the interest kind of helped nurture itself.
That's amazing.
And then even in university, there weren't many space clubs around when I was in university. But there would be one or two. And so I would go to those, even if they were mostly physics students, and I would just insert myself there because I had the interest. And that meant by the time I came back from my master's degree at the Space University, I wanted to be a catalyst for helping others discover space. So I started the Space Medicine Club at my medical school. I helped revitalize the Canadian chapter of Students for the Exploration and Development of Space. So it was that love of space and helping others find that path as well.
That's incredible. And then you also now work on Project Possum, right?
Yes, yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because I'm sure you're going to explain it a million times better than I will.
Yeah, I can absolutely do that. In fact, if you'd like, I can show you some photos from what we do. Maybe a picture will paint 1,000 words.
Absolutely, that would be wonderful.
All right. So this is just to kind of give you an idea of what I'm talking about when I say I live underwater and when I test spacesuits. I work with a number of different organizations. And one of those organizations is called Project Possum. And actually now we call it the International Institute for Astronautical Sciences. And this was my introduction into the world of spacesuit testing. And so we've been lucky enough to test spacesuits in zero gravity. You don't have to go to space to test spacesuits in zero gravity. You can do that in parabolic flight. So you're not flying any higher than a commercial aircraft. But you're just like when you go over a roller coaster in an amusement park, your stomach lifts into your chest for a second. It's because you're falling at the same rate as the roller coaster. And so when our plane does that, we're flying up and down. And so when you fall at the same rate as the airplane, you're falling for a period of 20 seconds. And so you're generating 20 seconds of microgravity or zero gravity or weightlessness. And that gives you time to test your science, or in this case, the technology. And in this case, we're testing a spacesuit called an intravehicular activity spacesuit. And I, in fact, have a short video clip that I'm going to show you what that looks like.
Hover all the tasks so that I can record it.
No rain in the back, huh? No rain in the back. Umbrella? Nice.
So that you can see that we work in very, very finely tuned teams. We communicate very closely with each other. We rehearse together. We test other kinds of spacesuits. So this is an extravehicular activity spacesuit. This is one we tested with the Canadian Space Agency. We do work in simulations in the water. So this is our off-nominal emergency egress course. So we have a simulated Orion capsule. That's the capsule that's going to take astronauts to the moon, and we simulate emergency operations where you have to get out of the capsule into the water in your spacesuit in a raft. And we even do work under the water. This is our neutral buoyancy lab. So when you adjust the weighting of your spacesuit, and you're working with your partner here in this scenario to do work outside of your simulated spacecraft, you're actually floating and it feels like you're weightless. So that's a really quick snapshot of some of the work we do at Project Possum or IIAS. They go by the same name. And it's just been an incredible journey that I've been part of the past 8 years.
As Akshita has written in the chat, this is so cool. This looks incredible, and it's something that I think happens behind the scenes that we're not seeing, we're not understanding. But the importance of that spacesuit, which I feel we all take for granted, but you've really worked to make sure it's right? To make sure the astronauts are safe in there.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So lessons learned from first or older generation spacesuits is the glove didn't used to have that much range of motion, so there could be lots of pressure on the fingernail beds, and astronauts could lose fingernails. They could get injuries to their shoulder joints. If there's really great videos on YouTube of the Apollo astronauts and how much difficulty they had moving on the moon with their early generation spacesuits. Their center of gravity was such that, it was so high they were prone to falling over. The waist joint and the knee joints were such that they couldn't make full use of their legs. So you can see that they really struggled. So next generation spacesuits are really trying to overcome all of those problems. And when we test them in the weightless environment, we're trying to see what is the range of motion like. Wow, how does the suit behave when the visor is down and the suit is pressurized? Because when you're working in a suit that's pressurized, you feel like the Michelin Man. You're really struggling to move. So all of that comes into consideration.
That's incredible. I know we have only 5 minutes left with you, but it looks like Akshita has a question.
Hello again. So as you were saying that the first generation suits sort of like restricted the person, but there's just one question on time-wise. It's just like it was just correlating it when I go shopping. I wear some sort of clothes, and I think it's nice, like, because I don't spend that much time in it. But when I'm wearing it for long, I realize how, it restricts my movement, how itchy it is, and everything. But just wanted to ask one question: when you wear these suits and you're testing them in different areas with different pressures, in different atmospheres, do you all do it multiple times, or is it just once, or is it like for a long period?
Yeah, it depends on the suit that we're wearing. So that's a really great question. So over the course of a parabolic flight, depending on what we're setting out to test, we might be doing 12 to 20 parabolas. So that will be about an hour. And so if you're in the spacesuit, you're thinking about the temperature control, you're thinking about ventilation, you're thinking about your oxygen or your air supply and how much carbon dioxide is building up. If we're doing a run in the neutral buoyancy lab, it'll be about 45 minutes. But if you're doing back-to-back runs, I was once in the pool for 7 hours last year.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a long time. And so then I noticed that the chest plate I had on was creating this bruise on my chest because of the positioning. So all of that becomes really important. And then when we're doing the gravity offset that I showed you in this picture, those runs will be about 45 minutes to an hour as well. So you are working pretty hard in the suit, and you're getting a sense of, it is actually a lot of work, and you end up being pretty tired at the end, but it's also a lot of fun.
So basically it's basically done for a long enough time where you can notice if there are any problems and what's working properly and what isn't working properly, and then you could fix that for like later on.
That's exactly it. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Akshita. Dr. Pandya, we cannot let you go without talking about Chandrayaan now, can we?
Yes.
So when Chandrayaan happened, it was a moment in India, right? That even people who weren't thinking about what did the moon landing look like now suddenly were. And it opened up that career option or even the thought of that being a career for so many people. What did you think about the Chandrayaan landing and what did it mean for India and for the space world?
Oh my gosh. I even now, even as you asked that question, I am so excited. This is the beginning of a new era in space exploration. It's the beginning, it's both in India, both in the commercial sector, both for the reputation of ISRO. Anything that happens at the South Pole. So just to briefly recap, Chandrayaan-3, the lander, it had a mandate to do lunar exploration at the South Pole, which is really important because there's thought to be permanent ice in the craters that are there. And so the next humans that go to the moon in the next several years are going to go to the South Pole. So anything that's discovered there will be because of the discoveries that India has made. So that's hugely exciting. And so many good things are happening, both at the agency level and at the commercial and in the entrepreneurial level in India. But then also at the level of humanity, like we are going back to the moon this decade and we're going there to stay, we're going there to explore, we're going there to do science and to use the moon as a test bed for Mars. So this is just the very beginning, and it started with Chandrayaan-3. So India has to be very, very proud of itself. And I hope that anyone who's been following this journey is inspired to be part of that space story.
That's incredible. And it has been a moment that I think has brought so many people into even understanding what happens in a moon landing, right? In India, it was all over, and it was a moment of pride in a way that everyone watched it together, everyone felt invested in it. And hopefully this means there'll be many more women entering ISRO, entering the industry. Again, I know Akshita has a hand up. Akshita, before I come to you, Dr. Pandya, we ask everyone who comes here what the speakers, what they would remind themselves or what they would tell their younger selves. So what would you tell your younger self?
I would tell my younger self that the goals you set for yourself, the things you set out wanting to do in exploration, in space, in medicine, in technology, keep those goals and work really, 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 really hard, because where you land as an adult with that work ethic and with those goals and with that plan will be a place beyond even your wildest dreams. So just work really hard, act like you belong there, and then seek to be the best at whatever it is you want to do, because the future is just an incredible place.
So thank you. I know it's very late for you. So Akshita, I'm giving you the last word, but let's keep it very quick because Dr. Pandya must get her sleep.
I'm so sorry, but this is gonna be the last question I ask. So you were talking about the whole Chandrayaan landing, the whole moon discovery, correct? That just reminded me of like a book I read. Do you think like in the near future will there be like a space station, a proper space station, like?
Yes. So, in fact, I was just in Los Angeles 2 days ago talking about this. So, right now, the International Space Station is due to be retired by 2030. But that means that there are private companies like Axiom, like Blue Origin, like Above Space, like Nix, like Vast, who are all planning to put their own private commercial space station in orbit around Earth. And even cooler than that, NASA, the Canadian Space Agency, the European Space Agency, and the Japanese Space Exploration Agency are all working together to put humanity's first deep space station in orbit around the moon. So not only are we going to have space stations around Earth, we're going to have space stations around the moon, and that's just the very beginning. So keep following what's going on in human spaceflight, because this is the most exciting time to be part of human spaceflight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pandya. This has been so inspirational, and it's been a privilege to learn from someone like you and to hear about your journey. I see we've got some claps, the Zoom claps coming in for you. But thank you for joining us. It's been an absolute honor to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed this, and I really wish you all the best in your future STEM and space careers, wherever you may end up.
Thank you. Good night.